This podcast is brought to you by Steede Motor Group, Claregalway. For your personalised vehicle shopping experience, find out more at steedemotorgroup.ie.
So I'm joined now by Jonathan Higgins of Galway FM, and we're going to have current Hepburn footballer Padraic Cunningham in the next few minutes, just to look back on the action in the Galway Senior and Intermediate Championship over the weekend. The football really did come to life at the weekend. Some spectacular games across both the Senior and Intermediate. Jonathan, just before we do that, the appointment obviously came of the Galway under-20 manager, and it has been confirmed that Derek Savage is going to get that job for 2023, going in obviously to the 2024 season. A great appointment really, and you look at the management team and you look at such a player to have involved, particularly with these Galway younger players. It felt like when his name was put forward that there was a great chance he was going to get it.
Yeah, well, I guess if you're going for the former player approach and the legends approach, they've definitely gone the right way. Like Savage and Ja, of course, as well. Talk about absolute idols and heroes of mine. Growing up on that team, I think everybody involved in the glory days or that watched it on the glory days of Galway football. You add in Gareth Bradshaw as well, and it's pretty stacked backroom staff and setup, which is all the rage these days. Probably a little bit surprised, if I'm being brutally honest. I would have thought the first step would have been towards the minor job, potentially, after they're primarily involved in the North Galway under-16 Ted Webb side. So, but yeah, no, it's definitely the caliper. And I listened to Derek talking to Galway Bay on Saturday, and you feel like they're ready to motor straight away. It's far from the whole I'm the former player, I rock up here and take over scenario. It's a player that's our manager that's well clued in the modern game, and knows as well that he described himself. He played in the modern game as well in that transition away. I think we've seen probably a little bit of Padraic coming into the senior setup initially, that maybe the dream and the romantic notions of playing this beautiful football and drive it in long at the edge of the square. Those days are gone, sadly, but you do have to adapt. But there will be facets of the game that they'll be able to take in there also. But it's exciting before. Sort of appointment. It certainly got a lot of buzz up and down the country as well, and what announced and what a kind of a row of experience they have on that backroom staff there, and can only serve Galway well going forward. And look, they'll be taking by and large the backbone of an All-Ireland winner minors side there into it, and there's a lot of young potential, a lot of young good footballers in the county as well. And it was very noticeable when he spoke on Saturday about wanting to reach the net out and look at every sort of team up and down the country, up and down the county, in terms of getting them on board and throwing that net out. So that's important as well. So it's exciting times.
So we have Padraic Cunningham as well in here now. Padraic, we're just talking there. There's a lot of intrigue, I suppose, now with the Galway under-20 management team being announced there over the weekend.
Yeah, definitely. Look, it was Derek's. He's a masterclass of the game from a long time ago. I think look at you go out his career and his highlights speak enough for him. But he's a management team there going, and like I said, Gareth Bradshaw coming in there, wealth of experience. So it's exciting times to the Galway under-20s, and I think they'll relish the opportunity of playing under someone like Derek Savage.
There's excitement there too, obviously, when you have Ja Fallon in there too.
Yeah, definitely. Like it's not just one there. There's 5 or 6 people there that are top class, like Paul Harty, Damien Dowd. There's some serious people to work with there.
Yeah, there definitely does seem to be a lot of excitement around that management team at the minute. Just before I do get into the club action, obviously condolences out to the St. James's wider community there on the death of Alfie Howley. He was a real club stalwart there, and to the Salthill Knocknacarra club, obviously, on the sad passing of Aona's Hanley brother Finian too. So there was sadness in them 2 clubs over the weekend, and we just pass on our condolences to everyone associated there. On the club action, Jonathan, it did really seem to come to life this weekend.
Yeah, I think I'd mentioned it the last time I was on here that you're coming to round 3, the halfway mark, that it is kind of the time where the championship gets to life. That little bit of jeopardy that might have been there is suddenly, I think, the rug is taken away, and groups are starting to take a lot of shape, and teams know that they both ends of the spectrum, whether it be trying to get out of the group and into the knockout stages, or hold on to that all important senior football status. That came to life, and you saw that over the course of the game, over the weekend. Probably the best weekend of football we've had to date, and that's no surprise, just given everything that we've described there. But yeah, some great games. I was in Pearse Stadium for both days, and it just rained goals. Some really exciting games, and I suppose the one overview I would probably take of the weekend from the games that I covered would probably be looking at Salty Lochnacara. I think that was a huge line in the sand for them. Killallen put up one hell of a battle. The first half was as good as a half of football as I've seen in a long, long time. Killallen really, really threw the kitchen sink at them. Just a very exciting game, very attacking game. Star performance right down the spine of both setups. But in the second half, it was noticeable. Salty Lochnacara, good old Jono, back to his old, every trick in the book. He had the team in well late. They had to, I think, 2 or 3 rounds of officials had to come in to try and get them out. But when they did get out on the pitch, they blitzed Killallen in the second half. Rob Trinity got 2-4. They had just a bit of nous to them. And as well as you'd come to expect, what we talked about backroom teams of Ja and Sabo, but no more than John Amani and the setup that he has there at Salthill. The players are so well coached. They react on the pitch to different circumstances. They react to themselves without kind of no shouting or roaring on the sideline. They're in a good place, and it's no surprise when you looked at the team sheets when we got them earlier on in the afternoon, and you saw Rob Trinity back. Okay, what's he going to be like? Score 2-4. John Maher is back again, just an absolute rock in the middle of the field, and they're in good shape. And kickouts are so important as well. But I thought Rory Lavelle's kickouts were incredible over the course of the weekend as well, and some of the moves that they set up and the space that they generated for the likes of John Maher, in particular. Michael Glan was very good as well in the middle field. That was a strong midfield partnership. They're in a good place. They haven't gone away. And Tom O'Connell was on the sideline being water boy. Hopefully he's not too far away from an overall Galway football perspective to watch on. They have firepower, and they are. Many people were saying, that they're part of the 4, but they're just about hanging on, myself included. But I think they answered a lot of questions, and that result has a huge potential that they will push on and certainly be strong contenders now.
Before we do get into the games, Padraic, is there anyone standing out for you already that maybe hasn't been in the Galway conversation that could be in the Galway conversation now?
There hasn't, but like to be honest, I've seen all 3 of I know we speak about them every week, but Mike Cullen's games, I've seen all 3 of Mike Cullen's games, and they've been very, very impressive in all 3. Considering as well, they were hit with the game on Saturday. They were hit with everything Milltown could in the first 10-15 minutes, and then they just kind of created chances themselves and were more clinical than Milltown in the first 15-20 minutes. Like that, to me, it's just a sign of a team that have such wealth of experience, and on top of that, then there's players like Sean Kelly and Peter Cook that haven't graced the field yet.
Johnny Maloney's fairly making a difference, Padraic, even again there at the weekend.
Yeah, he is. He's a massive driving addition there for them. He's always seems to be the man that's the transition from the first third to the second third, the second third to the third third. He's very good at getting on the ball and bringing it that 20 to 30 yards out of the defence for them. He'd be very similar to the likes of David Wynne in terms of that, but David will be a bit more defensive minded, where Johnny just gets on the ball and he tries forward, and he's nearly always coming on the loop, or he's breaking the line in the attacking third as well for them, and he's even contributing with a score as well. Like,
obviously you're on Colcom with that game at the weekend. Milltown will obviously have their regrets, but do you think particularly in the first half, like, they had a few efforts there? I know the breeze was strong and everything, but there was just a few efforts where they're working obviously a lot harder than Mike Cullen to get them scores, but it just inside the 13 there was a couple of chances in the first half you're thinking that just are very demoralising when you're up against a top team.
Yeah, definitely. That's 100% it. Obviously, now I don't want to go too hard on my Milltown because I know Jonathan might come in across me and give me quiet. But no, yeah, like Milltown will feel very, very unlucky. Like, to be fair, I think they created a goal and possibly 3 points they left behind them in the first 15 minutes against Mike Cullen the last day, which like, to Milltown's credit, like Niall Costello, Liam Costello were an attacking threat for them all day. Like, they picked up the ball and they just went at that Mike Cullen defence, which caused a lot of problems to Mike Cullen. David Wynne was probably lucky at the stage of the first half to stay on the field, I thought, for a tackle. But the referee obviously saw it different. But then again, like, there was Mark, they were delivering ball inside to Mark Hare and Mike Martin, and like, that is a massive threat for Milltown. I was very, very impressed with Milltown's overall performance of the game. Even in the second half, when they conceded the 2 goals, their heads didn't really go away, because at one stage I think they were down maybe 11 points, and they still finished strongly and only lost by 6 in the end to a brilliant Mike Cullen team.
Jonathan, as a Milltown man, where are things for Milltown now?
Look, I think you're in a good position straight away when you do get off to the 2 wins. Look, with the greatest respect, it's always going to be a challenge against Mike Cullen, even if they are missing a couple of players. But like, by all accounts, I was talking to a couple of my Cullen lads afterwards. They were highly, highly impressed with Milltown, and I think there was a stat there. I think they left 1-8 behind in the first half. Like, that's colossal. Scoring opportunities created. Look, they certainly that's the game where you look at the way that group is shaping up, where you just don't want to get a pump and you want to stay competitive. You want to try and make a contest out of it, and by all accounts, they did. The next game now is a difficult one, because Annaghdown are in a new lease of life at the moment, and that's a dangerous one. Like, you're at that sort of halfway mark where you've pretty much you've done your step one, which is stayed in senior football, and keep yourself competitive, because the group is so split now with Lettermore and Spiddale on no points. The Annaghdown game is like, this is where you want to do the next step if you want to get them through. You get a result out of that, because you look at James's are up on 4 points, joining that kind of middle third. Mike Cullen will top the group out, and then after that it's pretty much the battle for second and potentially the best third place. So you want to keep the score, the points, obviously, but obviously the second most important really thing is you want to try and keep your score difference just intact. And it was important that didn't get a bit of a stuffing for Mike Cullen, which Mike Cullen have the potential to do that to any team. But the next one is huge now. Annaghdown are in new lease of life. You look at the improvement of Alan Glynn. I know we talked about Derek Savage getting the job, but I think it's important to touch on Alan Gale and Donald Flaherty as well. The two other candidates, where I think we're blessed in a position to have 3 such strong candidates for those jobs, and you can certainly see Glynn's improvement on Annaghdown. Like, they were, not go too deep into it, but they were in a bad place not that long ago. He's come in, he's steadied the ship, but not only that, he has them insanely well coached. You look at the last 2 games, they've scored 1-3 off throw-ins. That's huge. Comer obviously is going to catch the lights, because he's just an absolutely weapon, and he's a weapon in the intercounty game, never mind in the club scene. But also they're getting other scores, like Kilcommon's at the middle of the field was incredible, and then Dye comes back on as well. I thought he was going to be down and out for quite a while when he went off the game previously, but I think it was an ankle injury. But to have him back, Jack Dowd is a good form. Or in Sheridan, centre back is really good. Ryan Ford impresses me every single game. At fullback, also Potter is, I know he went off injured, but he had another fine game. James Healy is as good as a goalie as you get on the club scene as well, from all aspects. And they are getting their kickouts, where that one the goal we tend to do under Cian O'Neill, where you bring Comer out a little bit deeper, but you put it over the body and he comes on the loop. The far side, they started to do that as well with Healy. So they're a danger side. It's a huge test for Milltown, and it's that kind of, I suppose, litmus test really for that breakthrough, whether you're just happy to stay and secure senior football, or really, really push on. Like, it was Annaghdown last year on the refix game against Barna, and James Healy, that 45 right at the end, where it's kind of one of those moments where what I had to say and what my thoughts internally might have been.
I think I still have that text message from you that day, so I do.
But what a kick, what a story that was. But like, there's a little bit of motivation there. Not that you need anyone. It's nearly a local derby as well. There's not that too much daylight between the two sides. Not that far down the road. But yeah, no, look, that's a really exciting game, and it's probably a result that pretty much has such a big impact on that, because whoever wins that is probably battling with James's for the second position, because James's are going to beat on Spiddale. On Spiddale are coming. They're probably unlucky. They've certainly improved a good bit. They certainly have the firepower up top if they can just get things back. I think they'll be desperately keeping an eye out on the airport as well to get Finian O'Live back as well. Anton is back in it at a fine game. They do have scorers up top. It's just a case, can they get enough football? Because at the bottom of their group, I think Naval and Lettermore are doomed unless something drastic happens. That was a bad performance by them at the weekend. They're in a real sticky spot, but themselves and on Spiddale, that is the 4-pointer, whatever way you want to describe it. There'll be a bit of scalping in that game, I'd say.
Well, Jonathan there is obviously touching on Annaghdown's victory over Spiddale. They obviously won out 6-9 to 9 at the weekend. Last time we had you on, we were probably talking about Annaghdown's struggle up front, but Jack Dow now in the inside line with Frankie Burke and Damien Comer, 2 goals at the weekend. It definitely kind of has seemed to give Annaghdown a bit of a different dimension up front now.
Yeah, it sure has. Like, obviously, Jonathan touched on it there, but having the powerhouse of Damien Comer inside and forward, like in an inter-county game, he's a weapon. Like, you can imagine what he's like in a club scene. Like, yeah, for Jack, he can just learn. He can just learn, keep learning from Damien Comer. Even Frankie Burke as well. Frankie done it for a long time. He's lived off anything that ball has gone. Anytime he goes in around Damien, he's in around, ready to collect the ball if it breaks or anything like that. He's there for an easy hand pass. Not saying Frankie's game is top drawer as well. So it's an opportunity for Jack Dow. I think he should relish it. He's playing with probably 2 of the best club footballers that has played in the game the last 10 to 12 years. So for him, it's an opportunity to get in, get wealth of experience. And as Jonathan said, like Annaghdown have really probably come together in the last couple of weeks. They put in a very, that's an impressive performance. 6 goals and 9 points says a statement of its own, to be honest, in that group. So I think in 2 weeks' time, we're in for a bit of a thriller between themselves and Milltown.
You think that James's result has actually helped him?
Yeah, I think the James's result has kind of maybe, I suppose the best way of putting it is a kick up the hole is kind of giving them what they needed, and it's something they really probably needed, and it's filtered throughout the group, and they've put everything. One of them seems to have put their head down, and they've come out the right side of it at the moment. Like, they're back in the hunt. They're playing as Jonathan said, a 4-pointer against Milltown next weekend. That's probably the decider for them. Like I could see them putting up a big battle against Moycullen as well last day out, because they're a team that don't fear anyone that's rated bigger than them. Probably their problem is when they're on par with teams, they seem to just nearly drop to a level like that. Because I remember a couple of years ago when I went to see them play against Caherlistrane in the semi-final, not many people gave them a chance, and with 3 minutes to go, it looked like they were heading for the county final. They were going to be the first team to beat Caherlistrane. So it's similar in the terms of that the way they just rise to the occasion nearly. So this is why I'm intrigued to see what's going to happen in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, no, that Annaghdown Milltown game is now it's set up to be a tasty one. And I suppose the other team in that group, James's and Lettermore. James's are definitely going about their business nicely this year.
Yeah, James's for me have been the side that's improved the most over the course of the campaign. I remember seeing James's towards the tail end of last year's championship, and I thought these guys are doomed here. I actually thought they were going to get relegated. But Barry Downey has come in, a very well drilled side, very well drilled. Look, they have experience. The midfield partnership is as good as any. Sam O'Neill and Paul Connery. That's as good as any partnership up and down the country at club level, never mind in Galway. They are so well drilled. Like, they got a lot of plaudits after the Moycullen game for how well drilled they were, and they've kept that consistently on. And yeah, they have firepower up top now as well. Aaron Connolly's dangerous. You know, there's options everywhere. I think they are quickly becoming in that tier just underneath the 4. I think they're really making a march on that, and they're going to be a battle for anybody really now. And I think it's probably a battle for them and Annaghdown, who is going to finish second in the group. I hope I'm wrong, but I just feel like they'll have a bit more. And you look at the way Annaghdown have Moycullen the last round of games. Will Moycullen be able to just rest a few players for that one? So who knows what way that will go. But James is really good spot, really well drilled, really set up. And I think James's are a very dangerous side for anyone now over the course of the championship, and they could still have a big impact in it. But you touched on it there. It was just it was such a touching moment seeing that performance on the day we got that horrible news about poor Alfie passed away. Like, you couldn't go into the stadium without meeting Alfie. You couldn't go to a James's game without him. It's such an impact. He's such a warm personality, and just was Mr. Galway football. And it was just fitting that they put in a performance that good to give him the send off that he deserved.
Or I suppose the intrigue in this group now is really the battle between James's, Milltown, and Annaghdown.
Yeah, it is. It came down to that. I think Spiddle and Letchermore seem to have got a fair few beatings in the group so far. So that is another game between themselves. That is another 4-pointer. But yeah, I think it just came down to James's, Milltown, and Annaghdown. I not like Jonathan because he's a Milltown man. He's obviously going to say that Annaghdown will beat them. But I'm very, very impressed with Milltown. I was very impressed with them last Saturday evening against Moycullen. The fight they had was something I hadn't seen in many teams, considering when they conceded goal and came back into it again, and then conceded another goal again, and they stayed at it and at it. They tipped over, I'm nearly sure I'm right in saying this, I think they tipped over, apart from maybe Niall Walsh's point at the end, but I think they tipped over 4 scores toward the end that were massive for them. I was very, very impressed with even around the middle, Padraic Godwin. He was like playing full back, but he drove out. He was driving force for them coming out from defence. So he was, and then the likes of Liam Costello and Niall Costello, they're probably two of the fastest footballers in the county. So when they pick up the ball and going at you at top speed, it was coming to situations where Moycullen were even saying, "I don't know how to defend this unless we just foul them." So if Mark Clare and Michael Martin can nail their frees that they're winning, that the two boys are picking up, I think we're in for a cracking battle in 2 weeks' time.
Just obviously Padraic as well, because he's been at all the Moycullen games before we just came to the second group. Are they still a step ahead of everyone?
They are, in terms of, we know the player that, like last Saturday evening, the Galway senior football captain Sean Kelly wasn't used once. Which, if you said that to many club teams or many club managers and teams around, you'd be going, you're lying to me. But he wasn't used. He didn't even warm up once. So I'd say he probably knew he wasn't being playing, and they knew they weren't going to use him. I was just so thoroughly impressed with how good they manage games. Like in terms of like the first half, the last day against Milltown, they would be so disappointed with the score they left behind them. But I turned to Darren Kelly, I think, after 22 minutes, and it was 5 points, I think, 5 points to 1 or something. And Darren Kelly said, Moycullen have had 6 attempts at goals, 1 wide and 5 scores. Milltown have had 1-4 at goal and 1 point. It was just the gulp they showed, the class. Like they work the ball in, like Desi Keneally gets it's everyone knows what's going to happen with Moycullen, but they always seem to get the space. It's Niall Walsh, Desi Keneally, Owen Gallagher, the running threat coming forward, seem to be the boys running at the defences, but they're not shooting until they literally get into a scoring zone that's an 80 to 100% shot conversion rate. That's what really, really impresses me about Moycullen. David Wynne drives forward there. He could be running at the top of the D, but he's still looking for Niall Welsh, or he's looking for Desi Keneally or Owen Gallagher to finish, which this is what it shows, the gulp and the power that they have. For me, to be honest, they do look like the team to knock off the perch at the moment.
Yeah, they just obviously sitting top of that group, and then you have Annaghdown, Milltown, James's in the chasing pack. No points yet for Spiddle or Letchermore, but that game is going to be a huge battle of survival in this group when they both do face each other. Jonathan, a game you're at Saturday, Uachtar Carfin, was Saturday a missed opportunity for Uachtar?
It probably was, in the fact that they reduced the game, particularly in the first half, to the way they desired to have the setup, to have it a bit of a slow build up. Look, you all know how Alan Murphy's sides, we've seen enough of them over the years. You know straight away with the way they're going to set up. And for the first half, as I said, they played it completely on their own terms. They sat in deep. It's that shape. It's just a couple of men just outside, a couple of yards outside the 45, one in the middle, then everyone else clugs up the middle, right in the middle. And it was noticeable it took Corofin maybe 2 or 3 moves, maybe even a few more moves of the tactical chessboard to try and unravel it. And did they unravel in the end? Probably not. They probably just arm wrestled the way out of it. It was probably a hard enough game to watch in terms of raw purist football, just how that shape. And then, to be fair to them, Oak Gerard were quite dangerous in the counter-attack as well. And the goal they got by Adam Tierney was probably a prime example of that. But Corofin just had enough in the second half without really doing enough. It was kind of, you get one of those games where you just get the job done and you get the hell out of there and take your points and on you go. It was well into, I think it was 15 minutes into the second half before they got into the lead for the first time when Dylan McHugh punched over. Would you say anybody in particular played very well for Corofin? Probably not, but they're after losing Jason Leonard, they're after losing Ian Burke.
Are they feeling the loss up front? Do you feel that?
They probably were, but you probably answered a lot of those. Dilly Canny stood up strong and was the difference in terms. Well, it was a huge part in getting them over the line. He also took over the free taking responsibility, which is one of the big things that you are going to miss straight away, because Leonard is he just has a golf swing of a strike from a place ball. But Canning was solid. Tony Gill got a couple of important scores in the first half. The impact on the bench then as well. Dylan Wall come back from injury, came on, made a big impact. But Oak Gerard will be frustrated because they were only a point up after half time, and that was despite kind of, I suppose, stalling Corofin as much as you probably could have had from a tackle point of view, but still, and forcing Corofin, to be in first or second gear, but still to be only a point gone, or a point advantage probably wasn't enough for them. And also, Corofin lost Conor Cunningham to a black card, I think, just 2 minutes before half time. When you're going into a situation like that, where you're playing the first 7 or 8 minutes or whatever it is of the second half with a player extra, I think you really have to push on. But if anything, Oak Gerard seemed to tire a bit. I'm not sure that's just the way the game was going, in terms of, it's so they put such an effort in, and when other team has the momentum, sometimes it can be hard going. But either way, Corofin finished the stronger. And look, we talked about Salt Hill in the group putting down a marker. This was another type of marker, kind of winning ugly and all that, and the old cliches that come with that. But an important victory, a disappointing one for Oak Gerard, the way they're going. But this group isn't split as much as Group A is, in the fact that you don't have 2 teams cut adrift. It's quite congested in the middle. You would fancy that it'd probably be 1 and 2 will be finished as is now, with Corofin as 1 and Salt Hill and Knocknacarra as 2. But after that, the scramble for third position is, and in fact, the scramble all the way down. Like, that was a bad result for Barna as well, wasn't it? I thought at the end, but to answer in Corofin, job done, a learning curve and all that, and then let's hope from their point of view that they kick into life maybe a bit more. But I suppose it's not a bad place to be for Kevin Johnson at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's a good point. Jonathan touches on there with Corofin, Padraic. It's job done, but from Oak Gerard, like, we probably did have Corofin stages in that game, and then obviously the Barna game, second day out, they drew that. So I think there's frustrations there for Oak Gerard when you consider 3 points out of a possible 6, and Corofin are just kind of going around their business nicely.
Yeah, that's it, Paul. I know Corofin were dealt a massive blow there with the likes of Jason Leonard and Ian Burke stepping away from the squad for the year. That's like, they're 2 marquee forwards that probably good enough to be playing in our inter-county team. So, like, unfortunately for Corofin, they just have to, as Jonathan said, like, Kevin will be happy he's breaded just getting through the victories, winning ugly, but at the same time he'll be a bit worried that they're not playing to the performance levels they probably should be playing at the moment. For Oak Gerard, they will be, like, Alan himself will analyse it, I'm sure, and he'll go back to the opportunities when he probably saw the game they taken for the winning, that they didn't get it. They will probably be disappointed with the day out when conceding, I think it was 1-2 in injury time against Barna as well to draw that game. Like, so they will be obviously ruin the mistakes, but they can't really dwell on it. And that's the delight about this championship. You have next game again in 2 weeks. They have to be up for it.
Last time you're on as well, Padraic, we were talking about your neighbours. They were struggling in the open 2 rounds. I was talking to people from Berna, they're still absolutely sick about this result at the weekend. 1-5 to
Yeah,
St. in injury time, looked like they had it. Joe Monaghan gets probably a fortunate enough goal, but that's a huge result for Caherlistrane when you consider the blows they've had this year.
yeah, it 100% is. I'm sure they won't mind me saying I was chatting to a few of them, and they did say it was nearly daylight robbery. They took off Berna. But to be fair to Caherlistrane, look, you have to be in the game going into the last 3-4 minutes of the game. You have to be in it, and they were in the position and no better forward for Caherlistrane. If the ball defaulted, was Joe Monaghan. He's probably one of their marquee forwards as a man to try to get the ball to finish and score. So they will be delighted with that. That will gain them massive confidence. Now they have a chance of possibly securing their status without even getting before the group's end. So look, it's an opportunity for themselves. They won't fear anyone. It's the way the Caherlistrane are. They go out. They could be playing against the Dublin inter-county team, and it still fancies their chances with them. So there's a great belief down there, and I'm sure they're excited for another crack at the whip again in 2 weeks' time.
The setbacks they had to Port, they obviously lost to Annaghdown. I think it was Brian McCabe who actually went into goals then. He obviously hasn't played most of his career in goals for Caherlistrane either. So, and then even the last time we were on with Alan, they've lost some amount of players this year. They're obviously hoping to get Alan Morris back soon, but just for the setbacks they've had to stay in that game.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Look, I couldn't believe myself when I seen the picture of Barry McCabe in goal. I'm sure he couldn't believe himself when he had to be called on. But look at that's it exactly for Caherlistrane. They stayed in the game, and going into a game of football with 3 minutes to go, you never know what's going to happen. Unluckily for Berna, they will be sick, and they probably are still sick of what happened. But for Caherlistrane, you're in the game. The opportunity comes, you have to take it, and they sure did.
Yeah, Stephen Lawless got a black card as well in that period as well, which even made it harder themselves. But a huge result there for Caherlistrane. Jonathan, I know we already touched on Salthill, but they really do seem to be coming kind of back in now to form, and it's probably for them now just about getting Garage Armstrong and Tom O'Cullen back on the pitch.
Yeah, and probably just building a bit of consistency on the performance of what they had. Keeping Finnerty, getting him back in motor is key as well. He probably would have been a little bit disappointed of his first half performance. And look, I'm not privy to what went on in the dressing room, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was a rocket set up him and there were probably a number of other of their players just to get them motivated for the second half. Whatever was said in or said or wasn't said, it certainly had a big impact on their performance in the second half. But they're so strong. Colin Sweeney is immense for them again. The amount of ground that he can cover. Daniel Flaherty was interesting just to play fullback, but not really, I suppose, an orthodox fullback. It was more of kind of just being another runner from slightly deeper. It just gave them I thought it was a very interesting tactical variation. It just gives that different angle in terms of, it's not as if he was playing fullback and sitting on the edge of the square and that was it. But just he was able to just change the point of attack by running from a little bit deeper. It gives them another little bit angle, and it worked a treat. And that's certainly something to keep an eye on, because you're used to Colin Sweeney being the line breaker, but if you have another variation as well, it certainly adds to it. And they had a lot of strong performance the whole way down the team. There was a really good second half team performance in a game that was in the melting pot. And look, you don't want to go too overboard, but had they not got the result in that, which was maybe you always expected Salthill and Clare to push on in the second half, but it was far from written on the stars that was going to happen based on the first half performance. And you can only be admiral. It's not what they probably want. They wanted the points, Cullen, but the way they lost Patrick Sweeney just after getting the goal as well. That was a big moment. And the Kelly came on and did quite well for them, but that's a big loss for any kind of smaller club with a smaller pick or whatever. But they reacted to that well, and they reacted to pretty much everything in the first half. And they tore right into Salthill. It just aided to a fascinating watch. But the second half, I was saying, is if Salthill had lost that probably was it. You don't want to go too overboard, but it probably was if they hadn't got the result that they desired there. But instead, it's a flip side, and it's without contradicting myself, it's 2 points for the victory for them and Corofin, but those 2 points were a lot more important to Salthill, and just in the fact that it just keeps them going now. It could kickstart or has the potential to kickstart, and that spine of the team, whether it's Lavelle or Flaherty, you want to go Sweeney or wherever Daly, Maher, Cullen, whoever you want to put centre forward, and Rob Finnerty, like that's strong all of a sudden. And you know they certainly aren't going away, and a very important victory for them.
Who do you see getting third spot in that group, Bort?
I don't know, to be honest. Like I would have when I picked up the group at the start, I was saying, yeah, it's going to be probably Curfin, Sawtill 1 and 2, and then I was saying Up the Rard. Up the Rard will be so disappointed. I just think with the performance against Barna, conceding 1-2 in injury time. I don't know. I think Up the Rard might get there in the end. I know they have Sawtill to play. I think there is a performance in Up the Rard. I think they could take a scalp off Sawtill, maybe, even though Jonathan is singing the praises here of Sawtill, and they do seem like they have got their stuff together. And hopefully we can see Tomo back in the pitch and Garage Armstrong back in the pitch for them again soon. But maybe I think Up the Rard might just get there, maybe.
Yeah,
I do think there is. Sorry, I do think there is one massive performance in Up the Rard yet. I don't know whether that's letting off the handbrake a little bit and go a little bit more all out attack. They do sit very deep, and then they try and counter, and they were quite dangerous in the counter attack. I don't know, can you keep that going? But there's enough of big names there. There's enough of scoring people in that, and there's enough of danger in that side. I think they've one big wow performance in them. I think out of the rest of the teams, they're probably best served. I'm not convinced. Look, each their own on that. I'm not convinced that the setup they have is getting the best out of them. But I do think on the flip side that there is one big wow performance in them, and they still have the potential to be very, very, very dangerous, because there's a lot of quality, there's a lot of experience, there's a lot of players in that side that have won big titles, and they're probably better served. I think Killallen, if you look at it, probably going to be very disappointed after losing that in the manner of it. The injury to Sweeney as well, how bad will that be? Barna, I think, I know they had the momentum of winning the league and all that, but the way the course of the campaign so far has gone with the draws, and particularly getting caught like that, Caherlistrane, are going to be there or thereabouts. But I think the potential there for Uachtar, they have the highest ceiling out of that. But if they just need to foot down to the mat, I think.
There's a battle there now, really, you could say, between Barna, Caherlistrane, Killannon and Uachtar for that third spot. They all feel like there's still opportunities there. Bort, I know you have to jump soon, but just on a game here on Saturday, Group 3, Toome Stars 12 points, St. Michael's 2-6. Who'll have more regrets that they didn't get the victory here?
I was probably recapping the game, and I was thinking back, and I think both teams, to be honest, will be just disappointed they didn't come out of there with the win. Both teams had opportunities coming in down the stretch as well, but I think for St. Michael's, they probably will be a bit disappointed. They scored their 6th point of the game on the 18th minute of the first half. They didn't score another point for the rest of the game. I know they came out in the second half, and for the first 12 minutes, it looked like they were going to blitz Toome. They got 2 cracking goals, created another one, probably a hand pass from Gary Higgins, probably a tiny bit too much, and then Brian Harlow was bearing down and goal. I do think then from then on, though, from probably the 41st minute on, Toome kicked into life. It was like the second goal woke them all up. Gary O'Donnell was a massive driving force for them. Conor Rattigan was absolutely superb in the middle of the field. He picked up the ball, I think, at his own 45 one time, and he just ran clean down the left-hand side of the pitch, stepped into the D and kicked a great score. It kind of drove them on. I think both teams will be very disappointed, but if I was made to pick one, I will say Michael, simply because they just didn't score enough was the killer for them. They just didn't score enough, whereas Toome had opportunities too as well, like Jamie Murphy had a free on the 46 metres out, with I think going into injury time in the middle of the goal with a bit of a wind behind him. I think everyone on the ground would have fancied him to put it over, and he just didn't connect with it properly. But I was so impressed then as well with Brian Mannion inside. Like they were delivering ball inside to him, he was turning his man, and he was getting scores at critical times. So to be honest, both teams will be devastated they didn't come out of there, but both teams will also be delighted they didn't lose the game.
Is that a bit of a concern for Michaels when you consider 2-6, 6 points in 18 minutes, and then 1-1 the round earlier against Montpellier?
Yeah, I think, look at Colm Tummin and his management team. They're a fantastic management team. They've it all. They seem to have it all to do. They've all the setup seems right. They're tactics, everything seems to be good. It's just probably the end product isn't there for them at the moment. Brian Harlow, he had a fantastic game. He was brilliant. He scored probably 2 or 3 great scores. He was, I don't know who took the second goal in the end. He was probably robbed a bit from Gary Somerville, but they just seem to just lack that person that can probably grab the ball 25, 30 yards out and just kick a score for them, when the game is under the cost. I think they will be a bit worried, a bit disappointed, the management team, but saying that, there is plenty of forwards there that they can work on and try to, Gary Higgins, he probably missed 2 frees towards the end, difficult frees now, to be fair to him, but he would probably be disappointed himself with the ability he knows he has.
And then for Tuam, obviously they lost Claregalway. They've got a draw here, but even before we get into the second game, this group is just going to get so exciting now, because you consider Michaels have 1 game left, and the other results in this group was probably the standout result then at the weekend.
Yeah, it sure was. So that's exactly it. I look at it myself. I didn't really give Dunmore a chance against Montpellier. And but it was obviously a fantastic performance from Dunmore to come out of there with a draw. Montpellier themselves probably will be a bit disappointed, knowing the ability and the standard they play to. They will be a bit disappointed coming off with that result, but that result has thrown the group completely wide open now. I know Michael's next game is Montpellier, my loss, so they will look to hopefully take something out of that. Sorry?
It's Claregalway for Michael's.
Oh, is it Claregalway for Michael's next? Sorry.
Yeah.
They played. Yeah, so it's Claregalway for that. So that game is set up to be an absolute battle between the two sides. Same for Dunmore. I know they have Tuam to play. That's a local rivalry, next door neighbours. So that there is cracking games left in that group.
Yeah, and with that, even Jonathan, Dunmore 1-6 to 1-2 down. They're 1-8 to 1-7 ahead, going deep into injury time. Colin Ryan saves Montpellier for a point in the end, but nobody gave Dunmore a chance at all over the weekend.
No, it's one of those results that you look at and you go, wow, is there a mistake here or something like that? It's a huge, I was going to say victory. It almost feels like a victory for Dunmore, doesn't it? But it is probably, maybe aside from the 4 walls of the dressing room, it is probably the result that nobody expected, or it's a point better off than it would be. And this group, with the kind of mismatch setup of a team less, it just leads to this almost crazy setup now where you're going to have teams watching on. What a horrible position that's going to be. But Michael's probably disappointed now, really, having played the extra game to be not far enough away. It's almost destiny out of their own hands now, isn't it, really? And you thought that Dunmore were nearly headed for the wooden spoon at one stage there, particularly after the opening night, where they played quite well at times, but Michaels had too much for them. But it just, look, Montpellier, my lot, will finish top. I think that's the only thing you can say with any sort of certainty in this group after all this. Best of luck trying to work this one out, lads, because you have the 4 there, and it could really go anyway. There's nothing between the sides at the moment. Probably, it's even just to try and comprehend it. So what are the fixtures left in that? It's Tuam, Dunmore. That'll be there might be a football there someplace. that has championship football all over it. The Shams versus the Shafts and all that. That's just one of those games where it's almost unmissable, isn't it? Really. Claregalway, Michaels, a huge game. That's Michaels' last game then, so they sit out their last round. That's an awful position, I think, to be in. I have to say, from personal point of view, I don't like this setup here. I don't like the way teams are going to be watching on for me. I know the powers to be above have taken it, but I think it just leaves a horrible situation, really, doesn't it? And then lastly out, Montpellier, my law versus Tuam. What stage will Montpellier, my law be? Will they be in that classic, we've done enough, we've secured top spot, are we going to rest? So that's another facet in that one. And then Dunmore and Claregalway. Dunmore's last 2 games, would you put anything past the Dunmore setup? We've seen, I heard a lot of conversation in the stadium there, particularly watching, don't want to keep harking back, were you watching Evan and Lettermore and how adrift they seem to be at things about intermediate football in the standard. But you look at Dunmore that have come into it straight away, and I know they've only got a point on the board, but they seem like they've just I suppose they've taken the DNA of their club and they've just rewind the clock a bit. And there's a lot, obviously, there's a lot of young talent there coming through the club as well. But sometimes, I don't know, is it what Mourinho used to say, this is football heritage or whatnot? But I think it is an important point as well that the motivation or the setup in the club, they'll fear absolutely nobody. And like, really, you should say, like, take the next game. It's Tuam Stars, a seasoned senior outfit side that are being such a difficult challenge against a side that's just been promoted. It should be a mismatch, but it's not going to be. Like, I dare anybody to call that at the moment. I think you probably fancy towards Tuam, but nearly on current form. Would you say Dunmore? I don't know. Like, it's such an even tie, but for better for worse, I'm not a fan of the uneven number, but it's going to lead to some fascinating drama. And the good thing is, if you want to take an overview, there's while you can probably predict 1 and 2 in groups 1 and 2 and the winner in group 3. Aside from that, the groups are wide open. There's so many conversations here that are going to go on. We could talk to the cows come home and still kind of debate back and forth different variations on this. And I think last year we went down to the following Tuesday night, was it, in Dublin Park? I think we are going to be calculators at the ready, and don't forget that slight little rule change that I'm not going to go into now as well. The people in Clare were caught off, but it's not the same setup as last year. Let's put it that way. Score difference in the individual games between teams that are level, and not overall score difference. Pretty much to give an overview, but it sets up for what has been a slow charter of a championship. It sets up for just drama after drama after drama, and calculators at the ready.
Yeah, so obviously, just the table is Montpellier on top of 5, Michaels in second, 3 points, a game left to play. Claregalway third on 2 points, then Tuam in fourth on a point, and Dunmore bottom place on a point. So not much between them teams off. Padraic, who do you think is going to come through with Montpellier?
Edward.
Bedford, yeah, hopefully. No, if I was,
go on, say it.
Tough one. If I was a betting man and if I was putting my money down, I probably would go with the experience of Tuam. To be honest, I think the experience they have with the likes of Gary O'Donnell, Jamie Murphy, Angus Tierney, even like Cormac Walter there in the middle of the field or centre half forward, and Conor Radigan. I think that'll just get them that second spot. To be honest, obviously it's not. It's I could be completely wrong here, and Tuam could end up being the team in the relegation. But look, I just think that Tuam's experience showed to me on Saturday evening on the 42nd minute on. They just showed to me that they might look shaky, but their experience came into in the last 18 minutes, and they just got back into that game at pure that they've played senior for a long time, and that's what it was really that got them back into the game. That doesn't rule out like Dunmore. That performance against Montpellier could give you nothing but confidence. So, like Tuam and Dunmore next week, as Jonathan said, I hope there's a football at it because it will be an absolute cracker. Like.
Yeah, no, it's a game along with Annaghdown, Milltown, where you're really hoping for that game to be a double header already because they're going to be 2 cracking games in store. Just on the intermediate briefly before I finish up, lads. Who's jumping out for you so far, Padraic, there?
Yeah, look, there's in that intermediate, it's a war. There's probably 8 sides that are good enough to win it, good enough to win that intermediate. So at the moment, I was actually looking at the groups today, and I seen this every group I think is nearly all teams are qualified. Every team is on. There's 2 teams on 4 and 2 teams on 0 on all groups. For me. Probably from even just the experience of playing in the intermediate, I'd be looking at probably the likes of Meath Brannocks again. They just know how to win the intermediate. They look like they've kind of got their act together again this year. They looked impressive in the first day out against Cortoon, I think it was. That they looked very impressive up in Craig that day. Then as well on top of Meath Brannocks, I'd be looking at probably Kilconnelly and Glenamani then as well. Glenamani will be hurt from last year. They went to the wire with Kilconnelly in the semi-final, I think it was, and it was a cracking game. But they will look like the team that are that have the hunger again. So yeah, look at then you haven't you can I can make a case for all 8 teams at the moment, to be honest. St. Brendan's as well. So yeah, look, it's an intriguing battle, and if I was to pick one now, I probably would be looking at it probably, if they avoid each other, probably Kilconnelly and Neil Brannock's being my 2.
Jonathan, it's obviously with the intermediate this year they've brought in the preliminary quarterfinals, but the last round of these games are actually, if you look at the fixtures, it means first versus second in nearly every group. So whoever wins that will go straight through to the quarterfinal. Then you have third and fourth. It's huge games for some of them clubs, because if they win, they're in a preliminary quarterfinal, and if they lose, they're into a relegation battle.
Yeah, you have a first, fourth pretty much play off in all the groups, the way the fixtures are going, because as Padraic said there, it's 2 teams in 4, 2 teams in 0 the whole way through all the groups, and the 4s and the 0s play each other. So you talked about calculations and all that. This has the potential to be very, very easy. It's just winner on the day here. We'll go through maybe a little bit of variation in between if there's draws or whatnot, but by and large, it's going to be out the gap straight away. So yeah, no, it sets up on the cross-play thing as well. Just adds another layer, isn't it, to it as well? It just maybe puts an extra bit of a safety rope there for some of the sides. But you know, I haven't seen a lot of intermediate football, I won't lie, just because so much up with the senior championship. But you're ready from what you see and what you hear. It is the old stalwarts straight away, Kilconnelly in particular. But I think one from the outside, maybe not from the outside, is one of Abbey as well. Under Bunty Roach seem to be going quite well as well.
Got out jail the weekend.
Yeah, and that adds character as well, doesn't it? It adds a lot to the squad, and like, you know, you talked about teams that are just rugged and will not say die, and will fight to the very, very end, and that's another club that you can put in definitely in that bracket as well. I think this intermediate championship has the potential to be wide open, doesn't it? Like you have a number of different, like just the way, as you touched on the groups there, the way the winners and the 1s and 2s, like Glenamaddy again, better be shot if I don't mention, you know, Malahi has them flying as well. And remember that crazy game in Tuam last year as well, where there was, what was it, 5 or 6 red cards or whatever it was.
That was the Milltown coming out. No, I think.
But like crazy games, and look, they're going well as well. So yeah, look, there's a lot of, isn't it? Like it's such an exciting competition. It really is, and look, the way with the restructure and the how difficult it is to go up when you're whittling down teams to narrow down the numbers in senior. It's allowed this intermediate grade to be ultra competitive. Like look how long it took Dunmore, for instance, to try and get out of the juggernaut there, and look where they're, you know, putting up that result of the weekend. I think that's probably akin really to the level of quality of the intermediate. But to try and pick a winner or try and pick anyone out of that, to say with any degree of confidence, you've had a couple of Rockshanies inside you, because it's so wide open, it's so unpredictable, it's so close, and I think we're set for an absolutely enthralling championship there as well, and it's getting really into the knockout stages already here in the last round.
Or you're pushing after the weekend to get back up to intermediate.
Yeah. Look at it. It was a battle over in Ballinasloe. It's a big, wide open pitch, and we came out. Obviously, we were a bit hurt from the game before, but look, we got the result we needed on Sunday, and we just have to move forward now to 4 weeks' time.
Jeez, these are all the cliches learned. You're in the media business only a couple of weeks, and you're already rolling out cliches.
I learned them all from you, sure.
Sound.
But that's all we have on our podcast for today, looking back at the senior and intermediate championships over the weekend. We'll have Barry's edition, the updated edition of the power rankings as well, this week across the senior and intermediate championships. That's all we have time for today.